Yeah.
But the question is, should I be doing that? And how much or how often?
I think there's a happy medium with that. Definitely what you're talking about. There has to be a happy medium. Or like I don't like to use the word happy, but there has to be like a very thin gray line. So anyway, we're back, everyone. We're on YouTube. I just want to publicly apologize for that outburst towards the end of our study. Yahuwah willing, if I have time sometime this week, might try to re-record that whole study. I also just want to make an announcement here. Moving forward, is come to my attention just from this little, unfortunately, a fire was burned on the Shabbat on the record. And to prevent these things, I just want to make a kind of a reminder type of announcement. I am not, we here in the Awakened by Yahuwah Assembly, we are not opposed to people asking questions, but there's a thin line between asking questions and challenging the authority of this assembly and challenging the doctrine that will be taught in this assembly regardless of your feelings towards it. I want to make that very clear. If you're not okay with the oneness being, doctrine being taught in this fellowship, with all due respect, this might not be the fellowship for you. With all due respect, I am not going to stop teaching oneness. I'm not going to stop bringing up oneness. And if you want to retain being here as guests or members, you will have to respect my belief on that as being one of the main leaders of this fellowship. Okay. And I really do think it's important for us to understand that in the first century blueprint, Paul did give leadership responsibilities. And Paul shows us a blueprint that you don't overstep the leadership. Women, sisters should not be overspeaking the leaders. They need to have respect for shepherds. So there's a difference between asking a question and challenging doctrine or authority. And I think it's important that we remind ourselves that there is a difference. And if we don't agree with something, we just need to just don't bring it up. If you don't agree with it, you don't have to speak up. You don't have to put your 2 cents in. If you don't agree, you don't agree. That's all. There's been many times I've been on other fellowships that I'm not the leader, and I've kept stuff to myself because I respect the leadership. And I think all of us need to show that same level of respect. Okay? And the last thing I want to say is the idea that there's not supposed to be any teachers. People are misinterpreting 1 John. That's not what John's talking about. John's talking about people that want to be lords over the fellowship and want to replace Yahusha's authority over the body of Messiah. That's what 1 John in context in chapter 4 is talking about. 1 John John himself does not have the authority to take away from the blueprint Yahusha put and all the Brit Hadashah put, is that you have an order in the assembly. You have leaders. You have people being taught. The whole idea of a disciple is you're learning from someone, okay? So when Yahusha tells the 12 disciples, make taught ones are students, okay? So we can't be throwing out the baby with the bathwater, guys. Yahuwah willing, I would really like to do a study about what the word rabbi actually means versus versus what a shepherd is and an instructor in the assembly, because there is a distinction. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
That would be a really good study. I would think it would be good to include what it is, what is okay and what's not okay, rabbi versus teacher, and how there is authority placed within Yashral. There is teachers within Yashral. There is hierarchy of structure in Yashral.
Yeah, I agree. And at the end of the day, I think the problem is we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. We came out of the church and we threw away any decent structure they had in it. One thing I do like is that I was raised up in a culture of you. When there's a sermon or message being spoken, you don't interrupt.
Yeah.
So I do think that is biblical, and it's something that Paul, Shaul would have been approval of, and what he even puts in place in the first century assembly. Like Christianity didn't create that concept. Okay?
Right, of elders and
Yeah.
whatnot.
So
Yeah.
just FYI, people, like
That's right.
Christianity did not create that blueprint. That you have leaders, you have elders, not just elders, but regular shepherds, regular leaders of the assembly, and you don't interrupt.
Yeah.
Regardless whether you disagree or not. This is the main thing I want to get out here with this public announcement. You can disagree and hold your peace.
Mhm.
There's nowhere in the word that says you got to combat every doctrine you don't believe or accept that the leader of the assembly is teaching. Okay, there is a hierarchy in the assembly, so you need to understand that. So, and again, like, just guys, let's respect one another. Let's stop with the, oh, I need to say this, I need to say that. Why? Like, I think we need to get rid of the idea, I want to prove myself right, that mentality. Because I remember I would catch myself too, guys. I'm not trying to pick on anyone. I would catch myself, just trying to outspeak whoever the leader is of an assembly just to prove myself right. This debating type of spirit. Okay.
Mhm.
I think we need to just have a little bit more respect for one another.
Yes, definitely.
And have respect for Yahuwah's
Mhm.
foundation of what the assembly is supposed to look like. Okay. But I think, Yahuwah willing, I would love to do a study on the difference between a shepherd / leader versus a rabbi. There is a huge difference. And I think part of this problem is that we think that there's not supposed to be any teachers. So we think that we have the right to make this into a free-for-all. By the way, free-for-all is not biblical, guys. It's not biblical just to push your opinions and ignore what the leadership believes. Okay, just letting you know that that's not biblical. Okay, there is a blueprint as far as how orderly the assembly is supposed to work. And Paul talks about this. He talks about how everyone needs to know, like, there's a time for certain people to speak. There's a time for certain people to be quiet. And as I think it's also important to remember, guys, that there is a headship concept within the assembly. Women are not supposed to outspeak the men. Okay. And I'm not trying to say this to be mean, guys, but Paul does talk about this.
Peter does too.
Okay. Again, so I'm just trying to remind my sisters out there that Paul does talk about this. Okay, I'm not making this stuff up. So anyway, hopefully this has kind of put all of our subscribers at ease, all of our brothers and sisters at ease there on YouTube. And I know some people are not going to like this, and that's fine. Fellowship's not for everyone. Okay. I am of the belief I would rather have quality over quantity. And so, anyway, just want to say love all of our mishpach out there. Have a great rest of the Shabbat. And Yahuwah willing, see you next Shabbat. Love you guys. Shalom.